Okay, let's dive straight into this explainer. If you're a working professional thinking about heading back to night school, or maybe you're already buried under a massive mountain of textbooks in a graduate program, I need you to stop exactly what you're doing and listen to this. Today, we're unpacking some incredibly contrarian, but honestly highly practical advice. Whether you're currently a student, plotting your return to academia, or just kind of fascinated by how modern education and high-level networking collide in today's world, this is going to be incredibly relevant to you. We're looking at source material that completely flips the traditional script on what it actually means to study and, more importantly, what it takes to actually succeed in higher education today. We're challenging the very foundation of why people even go to school in the first place.
So let me ask you a question. When you picture a really successful grad student, what pops into your head? If you think succeeding means grabbing that seat in the absolute front row, sitting super rigidly, burying your nose deep in a thick book, and frantically transcribing every single syllable the professor mutters, well, prepare to have your entire paradigm completely shattered. The source we're examining today forcefully argues that this old-school mentality isn't just a little outdated. It's actually entirely missing the point of why you're sitting in that room at all. Think about it. If your grand plan for grad school is to just show up, sit in total silence, and act like a human tape recorder, you're doing it completely wrong. Traditionally, we've all been taught to be that frantic transcriber. You know the exact type. Head down, aggressively typing or scribbling, terrified to miss a single comma. But the truly smart, modern student, they do something entirely different. They simply sketch the concepts. You shouldn't be trying to capture every minute detail. Your actual job in that physical classroom is to loosely outline the main frameworks so you can review them later. But here's the kicker. By not desperately transcribing, you can keep your head up. You can observe the professor's behavior, their specific cadence, how they command the room, and the dynamic energy of your peers. You're observing the room, not just staring at the whiteboard.
Let's be totally blunt here for a second. Bragging about your remarkably thick notebook is quite frankly foolish. The source is exceptionally clear on this. It's a pure vanity metric. Going home and feeling this immense sense of pride just because you perfectly documented a 2-hour lecture doesn't actually mean you learned anything valuable. And it certainly doesn't mean you utilize the highly unique, very expensive environment of the graduate school classroom. All it really means is that you successfully played the role of a human copy machine for the evening. And honestly, we already have machines that do that far better and far cheaper than you can. Which leads us to a much more effective strategy.
Now, this naturally brings up a massive, totally valid question. If you intentionally decide not to take those highly detailed notes during those expensive lectures, how on earth do you write your thesis? How do you pass those brutal exams? Well, the answer provided by our source is an absolute game changer. You leave the heavy lifting to artificial intelligence. You rely on AI for the deep, exhaustive research, not your professors, and definitely not your frantic in-class scribbles. Look, professors aren't there to spoon-feed you encyclopedic facts anymore. That whole model of education is dead. The physical classroom is simply for sketching the intellectual framework. Your home computer, armed with modern AI, is your new, hyper-efficient research lab, where the actual academic heavy lifting happens. Just imagine this completely revamped workflow for a second. Instead of dragging yourself back to your apartment completely exhausted from writing all day, your evening looks like this. You've comfortably sketched the big ideas in class, you go home, grab a coffee, fire up your AI, and just ask it to break down those specific concepts so you can truly understand them. The source explicitly notes a fascinating reality. A human professor simply cannot find, curate, and perfectly tailor all this supplemental reading material just for you. They don't have the time, but an AI absolutely can, and it'll do it in about 4 seconds. You take what the AI finds, compile it, synthesize it, and boom, there's your final paper.
Now here's a highly specific and maybe slightly quirky piece of advice straight from the source text. You should actively say thank you to your AI. I know, it sounds a bit silly, like we're practicing bowing down to our digital overlords, but the text emphasizes that practicing good manners puts you in the exact right headspace. You're treating it respectfully as your personalized mentor. By interacting with the AI as a highly competent research assistant that you guide and manage, you fundamentally shift your relationship with your work. You offload the grueling rote tasks, which brilliantly frees up your actual finite human energy for what grad school is truly meant for.
And that brings us to what is easily the most provocative realization in this entire explainer. Let's really sit with this tension. If your AI is doing all the heavy academic lifting for practically free, right at your kitchen table, why on earth are you writing a check for tens of thousands of dollars to a university? Why go through the grueling application process just to sit in a physical, geographically bound classroom? What is the actual tangible return on investment for that staggering tuition bill? The source argues passionately that we need to completely redefine exactly what it is we are buying when we pay tuition. Because if you think you're just buying facts in a syllabus, you are overpaying by a landslide.
Think of the institution you're applying to like a giant swimming pool. The source text uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor of water quality to explain the true value proposition here. It details that the tier, the prestige, and the ultimate price of the school directly correlate to the quality of the people you'll be swimming with. Cheaper tuition might get you into a standard community pool, meaning the water quality is a bit lower, filled with standard everyday connections. But that insanely expensive premium tuition at top-tier schools, that means significantly higher water quality. You are actively paying a massive premium to swim in a highly exclusive pool alongside elite, exceptionally influential people. You're buying lifetime access to a network.
When we talk about famously elite institutions, places like Harvard, Oxford, or Stanford, we have to be incredibly honest about what they actually are. The source explicitly names these caliber of schools, pointing out that they are exclusive global hubs where you can essentially cross paths with the sons of kings, global leaders, and literal billionaires. Elite graduate programs are incredibly rare, protected environments where you can interact seamlessly with ultra-wealthy or deeply powerful individuals, almost entirely regardless of your own socioeconomic background. It's a fleeting chance to cross traditional class boundaries. So if you miraculously get into Harvard and you later brag that you studied really hard in the library by yourself all day, you completely miss the point.
The real secret here is understanding that gaining high-value relationships is a dramatically compounding process. The source outlines this so clearly. You don't need to walk into a mixer and desperately hand out 50 business cards. That's not the goal. You go into that elite environment to make one exceptionally high-quality, genuine connection. Imagine meeting just one peer whose family runs a major venture capital firm. When you earn their genuine trust and build a real friendship, that single person will actively open the door and introduce you to an expanding network of even more high-quality contacts. They pull you up into their inner circles. That compounding human network is the true appreciating asset paying dividends far beyond your master's degree.
But to actually build these networks and trigger that compounding effect, you've got to completely transform your classroom persona. Think back to that traditional, rigid student we talked about earlier, the one furiously scribbling in their notebook. You cannot be that person. You must intentionally transition from being an isolated, hyper-focused academic into a highly charismatic connector. Your primary job, the second you step foot in that room, is to be someone that other influential people actually enjoy being around. You want to be the kind of person they actively want to introduce to their powerful friends. Your social capital becomes infinitely more important than your GPA.
Luckily, the source gives us a highly actionable playbook for making this exact transition. It all starts with your physical presence. You need to maintain open body language, uncross your arms, sit up, and genuinely smile. You need to be exceptionally welcoming and warm to your peers. When someone speaks up in a discussion, don't just sit there silently waiting for your turn to sound smart. Listen earnestly and respond sincerely to their ideas. The text explicitly warns against being stiff, overly rigid, or intensely serious about just studying. Warmth, approachability, and earnest listening are going to build your high-tier network infinitely faster than acting like a cold academic trying to prove you're the smartest person in the room.
Now, there is a stark, almost tragic warning for those who choose to stubbornly ignore this advice. The source uses a really evocative Korean term for the person who gets this entirely wrong, zangi. It perfectly describes the narrow-minded academic, the isolated nerd who keeps their head down, hides in the library, and constantly bugs the professor about how to study even harder. By focusing solely on hoarding knowledge, which, as we established, AI processes infinitely faster anyway, you completely miss the profound human value of the entire experience. It is an absolute tragedy to pay premium tuition, spend years of your life, and ultimately graduate with a perfectly written notebook of facts, but a completely empty Rolodex.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to let this sink in. The fundamental paradigm of education has radically shifted right beneath our feet. Basic information and rote knowledge? It's cheap, it's commoditized, and it's easily accessible through AI at any time of day. But high-quality human trust, genuine friendships, and access to elite global networks, those are incredibly rare, scarce, and astronomically valuable. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you walk into a classroom, log into a high-level lecture, or attend a professional academic event, ask yourself, are you just building a thick notebook, or are you building a powerful network? The choice is entirely yours, and it will single-handedly dictate the true return on your investment.